In this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to cut this stylish Queen Anne neckline dress with a front lacing bar. So this dress is from Judify on Instagram. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go ahead to hit on the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now to start, we are going to cut the upper part of this dress first. And for the upper part, which is your half length, so which is my shoulder to bust, under bust and waistline. So now after you're done marking this, I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus half inch because this dress has a sleeve, and from there I'll come down by 1 inch. I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 inches for this pattern. For the neckline, so I'm marking 3 inches by 3 inches and I'll connect my shoulder slope. Now I'm going to find my chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5, which gives me 7, and I drew out a straight line there. So whatever you have on the shoulder, mark it on the chest line, which is your shoulder divided by 2 plus half. Now I'll go ahead to connect. Now divide your armhole into 2 and come out by half. On the chest line, mark your bust circumference divided by 4. Now I'll connect from here to that half inch and to the chest line. So after I'm done marking this right, I'm going to go ahead to mark my darts. And to mark your dart, you need your nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. Now I'm going to go ahead to draw out a straight line. After I'm done marking that's half inch where you divided your armhole into 2. Go ahead to connect your princess dart pattern there. Now after I'm done cutting this out, I'll be marking my dart intake. I'll use half inch here and 1.5 here. So if you're plus size or you have a bigger bust, mark 1 inch here and 2 inches on the other side of your pattern. So after I'm done marking this, I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler and I will connect this. After connecting, I'll connect from the bust down to the under bust. You want to make sure you come down a little to avoid having a sharp edge here. Also repeat this at the other side of your pattern. So at the armhole of this dress, I'll go ahead to add like half inch dart on both sides. Now extend it back to your initial pattern or dart line. So from here now, I'll go ahead to extend that 1 inch we have here. That is a half inch dart, making it 1 inch. I'll extend it out and connect it back to the armhole. Insert my body measurement. I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. That 1 inch dart at the armhole, I'll replace it and add my sewing allowance. Now at the under bust, I'll mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Go ahead to measure the dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance. Now at the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart, replace and add my sewing allowance. Use any sewing allowance of your choice. Now I'll go ahead to connect the lines that I have made. I'll go ahead to use my ruler and I'll connect these lines. After I'm done connecting, I'm just going to go ahead to cut this out. After cutting this out, we can now go ahead to draw out the neckline of the dress, because the neckline of the dress is not a basic 3 by 3 inches neckline. So for the neckline, what I'll do is to place my tape and measure at least about 6 inches from here. Now I'll go in by 4 inches and I'll connect, because the neckline is not really straight. It's giving like a Queen Anne neckline dress, and I'll go up a bit. So this measurement is not a standard. Please go ahead to use what is okay for you. Now after this, I'll just go ahead to cut this out, and we'll now add a bust dart to our pattern. So if you don't like using a bust dart, you can leave yours this way. For your bust dart, mine is 1.5, and to get your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist at the front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17, my shoulder to waist at the back is 15 and a half. So if you subtract that, you have 1.5 inches go ahead to blend in your dart line. Moving over, we have the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to mark my zipper allowance, and I've also marked my shoulder to bust and my shoulder to waist line. I marked out the shoulder and chest line just the same way we did for the front. So next, I will go ahead to mark a basic neckline of 3 by 1 inch for this pattern for the back. Now I'll extend it to my zipper. So also go ahead to mark a zipper bulge on your pattern. So now I'll mark my dart, which will start by my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'll mark this at the bust and at the waist. So I'll go ahead to mark ½ inch on both sides of the waistline, come down by 1 inch, and I'll connect this all the way up. After I'm done connecting, I'll insert my body measurement, mark my bust circumference divided by 4, and add my sewing allowance. Mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake place, and add my sewing allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead to place my ruler, and I'll go ahead to connect. Now after I'm done connecting at this point, this is what I just need for my back pattern, and I'll cut out. But if you want to give it like a princess dart look, you can go ahead to connect it to the midpoint of your armhole. So just like I said, when you're cutting this out, you're going to go ahead to connect it to the armhole if you want to make a princess dart effect like at the back of the dress. Now moving over to front, you find out that there's a lacing at the front. So what you need is place your tape at the under bust, mark your waist, and then add extra 5 inches to your length. But first I'm going to mark my waist to hip point, which is 7 inches. After that, giving me 24. I'll draw out a line. Now from this pattern, now I'll also draw out my waistline, my under bust, my hip line, right? At the under bust, I'm going to mark my under bust circumference divided by 4 and add a sewing allowance. You can use the same sewing allowance you use for your dress so that it will match up at the side. At the waist, I also marked my waist circumference divided by 4, and I added my sewing allowance. Down to the lower part, you mark your hip circumference divided by 4 and add your sewing allowance. So you're adding this to the side of your pattern, starting from the under bust of your dress, right? So now you can decide to use the same sewing allowance or add little to avoid making it bulky by the side. So I'm marking the opening I want there. I'm using 2 inches, and what I will do is to place my ruler and I will draw a straight line. Now after drawing this, I'll just go ahead to make a mark or a dot indicating that I have a lacing. So from the lower part, I'll go up by 2 inches from my hip line so that it will rest above my hip and not be uncomfortable to put on with the lacing, because if you take it down to your hip, if you lace the hip area, that is not what is on the thumbnail and it might be difficult for you to sit down properly. So this is what we have for the lacing. So the next step we are going to take is to go ahead to mark the skirt pattern. So we are going to use one pattern to cut the front and the back skirts. So now the first step I'm going to take is to go ahead to mark my waist to hip point. My waist to hip point is 7 inches. Unless you're a very tall person, you can go ahead and use 8 inches. I'll draw out a straight line. After marking that, I will just go ahead to mark my measurements. So if you look at that skirt pattern, there is no dart on that skirt. So another thing you need to mark is if the skirt is after your knee point, you need to place your tape and mark your waist to knee point. So if this is my waist to knee point, I'm going to draw out a straight line. So from that my skirt to knee point, what I'll do is to come up by 2 inches and I'll mark. I'll draw out a straight line. So I'll be using this to serve as a guide when I'm marking out my skirt. This is the 2 inches, this is the knee point, this is the hip point, and here is the waistline. So on your waist, measure around your waistline and divide it by 4 and mark. Mine is 28 divided by 4. I have 7. Add your sewing allowance. Now on the hip, mark your hip circumference divided by 4. Then add your sewing allowance to it. Now whatever you have here on your hip, you'll be minusing 1.5 inches from it if you want to have a fitted effect, like a well relaxed effect. But if you want it to be very fitted on your body, go ahead to use -2 inches. So my hip is 10 inches, that is 40 divided by 4. I have 10 inches. Taking out 2 inches will give me 8. Then I'll add my sewing allowance back. So the measurement I have here is what I'll take all the way to the lower part of my skirt. So this is the need for this 2 inches. This is to give your skirt a well fitted effect towards this area, other than just to connect all the way down. So I'll just go ahead to connect and also connect here. So I'll just go ahead and cut this out. Now if you want to cut out the back pattern of this skirt, all you have to do is place this pattern, and you're going to go ahead to place this pattern, add like a zipper in front.